Well, the mood at the UN this week is anything but festive. Speaking ahead of the gathering, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he has little hope of any breakthroughs at all. To talk more about this with me, let's bring in Ruchi Anand, a professor of international relations at the American Graduate School in Paris and the University of California. Ruchi, thanks for joining us. Antonio Guterres said this session comes at a time of great peril for the world. He definitely seems less optimistic about just what the UN can do to help. Why is there so much pessimism already?
Well, thanks for having me here. I think that this General Assembly debate is happening in a very polarized, fragmented, and fractured world order that obviously sort of resembles a global Cold War, like you've been mentioning. You know, the fractions of Russia, China, India, Ethiopia, all of who are not going to be at this meeting. U.S., NATO allies on the other hand, it just seems like a stalemate. So I understand how the other problems that we're dealing with in the world are getting overshadowed by sort of the shadow of Putin and his invasion of Ukraine. It seems like that will be a dominant issue, but I'm not very optimistic of any sort of breakthrough coming from the General Assembly, unfortunately.
Well, what about this notable absence of Russia, China, and India that you were mentioning? Is that a calculated snub to the UN?
Definitely Russia, knowing that President Zelensky is going to be logging in online after the General Assembly resolution voted. India is still sitting on the fence. China, likewise, calculating, not to forget that China is the biggest consumer of Russian oil, India being number two, and that they're all just coming out of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, their meeting there, where a lot brewed. I think that there were a lot of pet peeves against the West, including sort of, foreign meddling, colored revolution. Having said that, the one positive thing that came out of that one was finally Prime Minister Modi got Putin by saying, well, it's not time for war. And in response to that, Putin did say, well, we'll do everything to stop this ASAP. Now, my issue, and I think the world looking at watching all of this unfold, is that saying we will end it is not going anywhere. And I'm not sure a General Assembly resolution or a meeting is going to take this anywhere. What we need in this time of crisis is really out of box solutions. And, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this is going to play out. But I'm not very optimistic, unfortunately, I repeat.
The other problem with Russia's war against Ukraine casting a big shadow over the General Assembly is that there are many smaller countries attending who support the Ukrainian cause but feel that their own problems are being ignored.
Absolutely. And then overshadowing all of that is the food crisis, the scramble for energy and oil, of which obviously Russia has an upper hand and a huge negotiating position. So it's really, a downward spiral. It seems like we're just focused on this war, not to forget that this itself contributes to all that we've been talking about in the climate change conferences. So it just seems like a complete mess because one of the biggest powers, UN Security Council veto member, landed up being extremely irresponsible, violating every possible law, international law that I can state. So it really seems like first things first, this has to stop, while unfortunately the rest of the world and the rest of the problems are going to have to take back seat. That's not how it should be, but that's realpolitik.
So, Rishi, what are your thoughts here just to wrap up? I mean, we're looking again at the UN holding its Ennium UN General Assembly with what seems to be no real solutions that are going to come out of it, as were admitted by the Secretary General himself. Do you feel the UN still has relevance in today's world? Can it do anything?
Well, I guess the blunt answer is not quite, knowing that, like I said, Russia is going to veto everything and has been, that the United Nations would like to do in response to this, outright illegal invasion. Is it capable of doing something? Perhaps, like I said, out of box solutions, which would require the UN to make some drastic changes. But for that, we're stuck again because Article 108 is the only one in the UN Charter that allows amendments. I believe we've had 3 so far, and that requires the nod from Putin, from Russia. So it almost seems like a stalemate, unless they're willing to sort of find uh, some interest in stopping war. Not sure how this is going to end. It's extremely pessimistic. I've never been that realist of a scholar, but I think that we have to stop looking at this as a zero-sum game, and this is for the West. We probably need to get back to the negotiating table, to dialoguing, to compromising, because I mean that statement by Putin saying to Prime Minister Modi, well, we'll do everything to stop this as soon as possible. There's probably something there to be worked with. I want to believe that the UN as an organization, and definitely not the General Assembly, can do anything at this point. But I think we have to stop repeating the same thing over and over because we're not going to come out of this.
Ruchi, thank you. Ruchi Anand, a professor of international relations at the American Grad School in Paris and the University of California. Thanks for sharing your expertise with us. Now, hurricane